Good evening, everybody. This is Darius Assemi, your host at GVWire Unfiltered. Welcome to our podcast, along with my co-host Bill McEwen, Director of News, Vice President, Executive Vice President of News at GVWire. Mike Karbassi has got the evening off, our other co-host, but we have a very cool pre-recorded session from him coming up here soon. Okay, we got a pretty robust rain. It was a little bit late, but it arrived. Paul Marshall did our in-house graphics person came up with that really cool, not that one, the one before, really cool design. That one, look at that. Is that's downtown Fresno, Fresno State, and then Sierra's on the right side, if I have it correctly. And then great article by Nancy Price, and then Bill updated the story. 4 to 9 inches in the past 24 hours of snow, and a little over 1 inch of rain in the last 24 hours. Is that correct, Bill?
So rain totals now showing 1.4 inches since midnight. That's the
Okay.
latest update. And basically, it's supposed to end tonight or in the early morning hours, and then looks sunny and clear through Sunday or so. Then there's a chance we could get sprinkles again on Monday.
Got it. Thank you, Bill. There's some cool video by Jaws Tello, GVWire photographer and videographer. A much needed rain in Central California. And then, of course, the 5-day forecast, really beautiful, incredibly beautiful weather, sunny, partly cloudy next couple of days. But look at that, in the 70s. This is Hawaii weather. And then let's start the 4 polls that we had up. Indigenous Peoples Day or Columbus Day. About half of folks said Indigenous Peoples Day, not Columbus Day. And I think President Trump officially changed that back to Columbus Day. I think it was yesterday or late last week. Do you think the ceasefire and return of hostages will lead to lasting peace between Israel and the Palestinians? 60% said no, this isn't worth the paper it's written on. It's really unfortunate, but I think that those 60% are correct. Of course, a lot of it is dependent on what does the President of the United States wants to see. Or is it the other way around? Does the Prime Minister of Israel tell the President of the United States what to do? At least in this case, Prop 50 would change how Californians' maps are drawn. Do you support Governor Newsom's redistricting plan? 62% of you said no. It's pretty divided. I want to ask you, bring Bill back in and ask, is it split half 50-50 amongst Republicans and Democrats, Bill, the response to Prop 50?
So when you look at the polls of California-wide, there's Republican opposition to the bill, but Democrats and independents are supporting it. So in statewide polls, it's showing that it's got 55 to 58% support. President Barack Obama now campaigning for this to pass. He's posting quite a bit on social media about it. What's interesting to me in the GVWire poll is less than 1% said they need more information. So I think minds are pretty well set. In the Central Valley, there seems to be a significant opposition to Prop 50, and it's coming from the communities who say the new maps will divide their city or their county up too much, that elected leaders will have to contact 3 or 4 members of Congress, where right now they're contacting 1 or perhaps 2. And Darius, so yeah, the Fresno County Board of Supervisors formally opposed Prop 50. The city of Clovis formally approved Prop 50, and California Farm Bureau.
Opposed. Clovis
Opposed.
opposed, yeah.
Yes, and California Farm Bureau, Fresno County Farm Bureau, other groups of that type that tend to lean conservative are out against it. So we'll see what happens on November 4th. My final reminder, you can vote right now.
There you go. Thank you for that, Bill. Hamas, oh, no, one more poll. This may be the most important or the least important. We don't know. Baseball is down to 4 teams in the race to the 2025 World Series title. Who will win it all? Overwhelming majority of you Californians that responded picked the Dodgers, which makes a lot of sense. But we'll see where this goes. I know a couple of folks left work early yesterday to watch the 5 o'clock start time of the Brewers against the Dodgers. Was that in LA or Milwaukee, Bill?
In Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Okay. Cool. Hamas says swaps last Israeli hostage for Palestinian prisoners. Trump says Gaza war is over. But a lot of other stuff happened right after that. Israel's Netanyahu won't attend the Egypt summit on ending the Gaza war. Now, why wouldn't Prime Minister Netanyahu, who, by the way, President Trump at the Knesset, was it yesterday, said, hey, he should be pardoned. He asked the president of Israel to pardon Prime Minister Netanyahu. Mass rally in Rome on fourth day of Italy's pro-Palestinian protests. That picture is President Trump, actually, in a speech to Israeli parliament, spotlighted mega donor Miriam Adelson. In the middle of that picture, the casino mogul, her husband passed away a couple of years ago, who was given a lot of money to pro-Israel causes, and of course to the president himself and to members of Congress. Actually, I don't know the members of Congress, but I know it was last summer, last October, almost a year ago, 95 million to at least President Trump's election campaign, or I should say, well, re-election or election campaign. Hamas carries out wave of Gaza killings, killing people in Gaza by Hamas, citing crime and security concerns, killing 33 rivals, at least. What a mess that part is. It's just really, 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 I feel so bad. I know a lot of folks across this world do for the people of Gaza, the civilians of Gaza that have, been tortured. Well, a lot of them starving to death, their homes, places of business demolished, destroyed by funding, military funding from the United States to Israel, and Israel bombardment of Gaza. We've talked about this many times on this program. Trump is losing ground on the economy, poll finds. Which poll was this, actually? Was this Bill, do you know who? I'm sorry, Bill had a comment to make.
So Darius, on a positive note about conditions there in Gaza, today UN said that member countries are willing to fund the now estimated $70 billion reconstruction there. So clearly this conflict has drawn a lot of attention around the world, and a lot of countries are really invested in it, and they want to see a good outcome here. They respect Israel's right to exist, and they're lobbying for Palestine to become a state, and reconstruction of the region and bringing some normalcy to the region is a major first step towards Palestinian recognition. Also, you mentioned Hamas killing people there in Gaza. It doesn't surprise me because they're largely left out of, well, they are completely left out of the future of Gaza. All the other Arab nations saying that United States, Israel should be working with the Palestinian Authority, and they do govern in the West Bank. Hamas only governs in Gaza.
Thank you for that, Bill. Let's go to slide 16. Economic approval rises with income. So if you're making more money, you're approving of President Trump's economic policies. That's a poll done by Center Square Voters Voice poll. Tariff-driven policy by the president and the pressure on the Federal Reserve have yet to ease consumer prices, but Republicans, you know, 80% approval or more, and Democrats 80% disapproval or more. Independents kind of split. 59, 57, 59% approve if they're making over 100 grand. Out of the independents, 57% of them disapprove. Okay. Trump administration admits immigration crackdown creates immediate dangers to food supply. Bill?
So this is my story. It was interesting on Facebook, some of the reaction. Why is GV Wire making up this story? GV Wire didn't make up this story. It's right there. It's posted in the Federal Register, and it's a report by the Department of Labor. And I say, President Trump can go out front and say everything's great, but even in the Trump administration, they need to know what the truth is to deal with this. And this goes back to when the immigration crackdown started. The administration said it will result in an all-American workforce, that people born and raised in America will replace the foreign workers when we're talking about picking crops, working in slaughterhouses, working in the hotel industry, that kind of thing. That hasn't been borne out at all. And so Trump's own Department of Labor talked about the dangers immediate to food supply because there aren't enough people to pick the crops. Because of that, farmers are having to pay far more for labor than they would have a year ago. So that's driving prices up. Then you have the tariffs in there. This report also acknowledged the tariff policy and the effect on food prices. So this is within Trump's own administration. I was really surprised to see this. Now, Darius, you said months ago that this immigration crackdown would threaten our food supply. It would raise prices, many other things. Department of Labor now acknowledging it.
Thank you for that great update, Bill. And part of the if the crackdown continues without really addressing immigration policy, I could see walking to grocery stores without much food or produce, walking into restaurants and not being able to get served, um, and not having homes built, and a lot of other challenges. Um, Ratepayers score a big win over PG&E. This was a big deal. Governor Newsom signs AB 1167, which ends using tax ratepayer funds for political lobbying, promotion, and shareholder expenses. Bill, any comments on this?
So this is a reaction in the last couple of years because of the state utility commission just rubber stamping utility rate increases and not really forcing them to show their numbers. I mean, to say, we need 8% and a commission majority coming back and saying, can't you really do just 2%? People are hurting, and they've become a rubber stamp. So the legislature's weighed in, and I'm going to pat our reporter Nancy Price on the back, and also you, Darius, because you said dig into this. GV Wire really started the coverage of these big utility rate increases. We were getting a lot of people reading them, so other media rightfully jumped in, start reporting too. And this legislation is a result. And the utility companies have said for a long time, no, we don't use ratepayer money on this. But the legislature dug into it, found out that it was true. So it's a big win for ratepayers. I don't know how much it's going to, whether it will even lower your utility bill, but it will force utilities to spend more money on safety and updating transmission lines and money going to actually buy natural gas and those kinds of things instead of spending it on whining and dining lawmakers and the people they buy equipment from and all those other things. So, yeah, I think it's a big win for ratepayers, and obviously there's strong interest in this story. If you haven't read it, go to gbwire.com.
Thank you, Bill. California's long-running saga over local tax measures might return to the ballot. Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is promoting a potential measure for 2026 that will require this ballot measure, if it is successful to getting on the ballot. This measure would require 2/3 voter approval on any new tax hikes, regardless of how the measure is put together. Right now, and I want Bill to correct me if I'm wrong, if you get the voters' signatures, if you get enough signatures based on some formula in your county, X percentage of the previous voting dates, folks, I'm sorry, I'm not saying it correctly. If X percentage of people in the county sign a petition to support it, put it on the ballot, then only 50% at the when the actual vote count comes in is required for that measure to pass, versus 2/3 if it's done legislatively through a council or a policy body. Bill, did I say that correctly?
Yeah, you did. And so Measure Measure P is a great case in point.
Mm-hmm.
It was sold to the public as needing 2/3 of approval um, based on some court decisions in neighboring areas. Courts ruled 50% plus one if it was put on the ballot by the citizens themselves. And so Measure P went from a defeat to a victory. It was one of the early test cases. It also went through the courts. So that's very interesting. I want to be very clear. This applies to local taxes only. So it wouldn't affect what we have with school districts. When they put out a bond, it's 55% that they have to get. That wouldn't be changed by this. And you got to remember, in the past couple of years, there were groups out there that wanted to put it in the Constitution that you needed a 2/3 requirement. That was shot down by the courts, and so now they're attempting to go the voter route. And then I'm not sure that it's going to get on the ballot. You know, they'll need a lot of money to be donated in this, and obviously cities will be against it because they would like to have a new tax. You know, often it's a public safety tax and they want that lower threshold.
Got it. Is this broadcast is supposed to be live also on our website. I want to make sure Paul and Eric do have it on our website for those folks that cannot get access to Facebook Live. Okay, let's move on to our next topic: protecting Jewish students or chilling speech. That is AB 715, which signed by Governor Newsom, seeks to combat anti-Semitism in California schools, but critics call it a threat to academic freedom. Introduced by Assembly members Rick Chavez Zbor, a Democrat out of Los Angeles, and John Addis, Democrat out of San Luis Obispo. California Teachers Association has opposed the bill, arguing it emphasizes punitive measures over education. It says it is flawed, but it was signed. As of July 1st, the bill has been amended and re-referred to the Senate Education Committee. Support of the opposition passed unanimously 68-0 in Assembly. Supported by Jewish groups, critics including educators and civil rights groups warn of censorship and chilling of classroom dialogue on Palestine. So I guess if you talk about Palestine, that could become, you could be violating this new state law, which was signed by Governor Newsom. So,
Darius, this bill, we talked about it earlier in the year and pointed out that practically every education group in the state was against it. They called it censorship. They feared it would have this chilling effect on classroom discussion. I got to tell you, the bill has been watered down and watered down and watered down. Many, to me, the things that I didn't think should come into law have been taken out. However, there's still some trouble areas. And in signing it, Governor Newsom said, I expect the people who wrote this bill to come back and meet with the critics and refine it even further. Now, they're not under any obligation to do so. To me, that was just kind of window dressing by Governor Newsom. But, ultimately the opponents lost the final battle, I guess you would say, but they had an important role in the process and they improved this bill. To me, it's almost a bill you can live with because it really defines the exact terms that are considered anti-Semitic.
got it. Thank you for that additional explanation, Bill. Now let's go to a City Hall report by Council President Mike Karbassi.
Good evening to our GB Wire Unfiltered audience. I'm Mike Karbassi, City Council President, with your exclusive City Council update. We are having a council meeting this Thursday, October 16th, and it is a packed agenda. A couple of ceremonial items. One that's very dear to me is we'll be recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month, highlighting a lot of the groups locally, including the Marjorie Mason Center, that do so much to combat domestic violence, which wreaks havoc on families in our community. But when it comes to policy, it is a packed agenda. A lot of things centered around land use and housing. There will be an item on the agenda about the West Area Specific Plan. These are the 3 council districts west of Highway 99, which includes Districts 2, which is my district, District 1, and District 3 in Southwest Fresno. And that's going to be a very important land document we're considering to approve. Also, there's something called VMT that you've heard a lot about on this program, Vehicle Miles Traveled. And we are required by state legislation to conduct VMT mitigation to reduce pollution in the air and the number of vehicle miles traveled and things like that. But what this will do potentially is tack on fees that will be paid for by new homeowners in Fresno. So it is a very, very big deal, and we should be looking at that policy very closely. Another item that we are looking at is a controversial item. It's a 4 p.m. hearing. You've heard about it before. It's the proposed multifamily 4-story housing project in District 2. It's the market rate project at Prospect and Herndon. A court recently made a ruling on this where they overruled the council's vote. The council did reject the project, and the court basically is compelling the council to support it based on a technicality. And this is something that I'm sure there'll be a very robust debate. And so tune in at 9 a.m. Thursday, October 16th for the next City Council meeting. Back to you, Darius.
That was a great report by Council President Mike Karbassi. Sounds like a lot of fireworks are going to happen this Thursday with that apartment complex that's going to go in front of the City Council for potential approval, and also the new tax on, gosh, everything, commercial apartments. This is all new, by the way, new commercial, new apartments, new housing for vehicle mile traveled, as Mike discussed. That also is it's happening this Thursday at Fresno City Council. Federal prosecutor off case after accused of flirting with defendant at Fresno bar. Do we need to cover anything else on this, Bill, or did we just move on to bicycle and pedestrian safety?
So, Darius, there's an update on this. The prosecutor took himself out of the case. There was a hearing held about it in Fresno Federal Court. The judge moved the case to San Francisco, and now another judge has stepped in, and the update is the entire Eastern District is disqualified as far as judges from hearing this case. So they're going to have to find a place to hear this case. It's about a woman who lived in Clovis at the time. She had concerns about her son's behavior, enrolled him in one of these get straight type schools. But along with that, they literally grabbed him, put him on a bus, and moved him to Missouri to attend this school. It was in violation of a restraining order at the time. Uh, the woman, who doesn't live in Clovis anymore, isn't charged with kidnapping, but is charged with violating a restraining order. And her and the other person involved could face up to 5 years in prison. Obviously, because the idea of, we think of federal prosecutors, they're the top level, right? Flirting with a defendant in a bar. It was the Modernist downtown where they have all the fancy drinks. Not good judgment. And then finally, Darius, the prosecutor in question is up to become a federal magistrate judge. A magistrate's just one level below a federal judge, and that appointment doesn't require Senate confirmation, so it's easier to get. I would say he has no chance at that job now after this.
Okay, there you have it. Fresno Police plan bicycle and pedestrian safety operations. That's 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's this Saturday. I don't know exactly what part of town, but illegal turns, failing to yield, ignoring traffic signals. So some good training, and also making sure people are following the law.
So Darius, it'll be all over town. This is one of those days where they charge patrol officers, also put extra patrols out there and say, look for this. Look for cars that stop in the middle of a crosswalk. Look for cars, turning right without stopping. And the interesting thing, when they do these operations, you have a ton of drivers cited, and usually it's for cell phone, distracted driving. Well, you have a ton of bicyclists also cited because a lot of bicyclists don't respect red lights or stop signs and those kinds of things. So, results in some money out of the wallet for people that don't pay attention, whether they're on 4 wheels or on 2 wheels.
Thank you, Bill, for that. Assemi cut from Blackstone Avenue panel after clash with organizer. So Assemi is part of Blackstone Avenue Merchants Association, and there was a community panel to discuss the closing down on, or making Blackstone go from 6 to 4 lanes, closing down 1 lane in each direction. And he was dropped from a panel. He claims because he disagreed with the panel sponsor, which is Ivan Paz, a Fresno State professor in that picture. But Ivan claims that the move was due to Assemi's refusal to collaborate. We're going to try to have both of them on is it next Tuesday or the following Tuesday, to discuss why was Assemi dropped off of a panel that discusses closing of a lane. Is it strictly because he disagrees, or was there other issues? And why is Mr. Ivan Paz, a Fresno State professor, recommending that we close down 1 lane in each direction on Blackstone Avenue between Dakota and Belmont? Well, that's coming up, folks, in the next couple of weeks. Of course, that money is already in place, and the construction or the demolition of that lane will happen sometime in 2026. Stay tuned, more coming on GB Wire. Trump protest organizers with the No Kings movement are planning to protest in Fresno Saturday, October 18th, which is this Saturday, from 9 to 11 a.m. Manchester Center. on Blackstone and Shields Avenues. In a statement, organizers said the movement aims to unite people to fight dictatorship together and emphasize a commitment to nonviolent action and de-escalation. As Mike talked about in his council report a few minutes ago, this coming Thursday, also a new proposal coming to City Council on higher potential cost. And of course, there's a state bill that is floating, that is actually already approved, signed into law by Governor Newsom, that could make construction of all kinds of new projects almost impossible because of the prohibitive tax on new homes, apartments, and new retail centers, because they all create more demand by customers, and customers like driving. They don't like walking or cycling unless they're in the neighborhood. By the way, Granville Homes has many designs and has already built and is looking to build more mixed-use development where you have, sandwich shop on the corner, a restaurant, maybe a small grocery store, nail salons attached to our residential housing projects, so to make the neighborhoods more walkable and of course pedestrian friendly. Jennifer Hernandez, who is a partner at Holland and Knight, an environmental attorney, had this to say about the new bill that was signed by Governor Newsom just this summer. The people who drive the farthest are people who can't afford to live close to their jobs. They also tend to not work in a central business district, and they also tend to work on shifts. They're just totally screwed. It's like, how many ways can you screw these people? And they tend to be brown. They tend to be brown people that are going to be most impacted by the new law signed by Governor Newsom. There's a few, by the way, we should probably, Bill, we should have Assembly member Joaquin Arambula on this show to ask him if he supported or would support a bill that is going to create so much havoc for folks, especially underserved. Maybe Paul can make a note of it. Upcoming few weeks, we can have that discussion with current Assembly member Joaquin Arambula. Bill?
So I want to talk about VMT. It was written a long time ago. It's been slow to be implemented, but it was written in a time before electric vehicles, other zero emission vehicles were really popular. It was also written in a time before telecommuting, where people work from their homes. VMP does not recognize electric vehicles, so that calculation doesn't go into vehicle miles traveled. It doesn't recognize telecommuting. It just assumes everybody's driving. And it's calculated based on how close your neighborhood is to schools, shopping, and other activities and work. And every area gets a score. It's the vehicle miles traveled score. And then they have a goal. You have to reach a certain number. If you can't reach it, you're going to have to pay that on the development of that neighborhood. Or if it was an infill project, even, on the infill projects tend to have lower VMT scores because they're in the urban core. On one level, it makes sense. I can see why the state did this, but they did it in a silo. They didn't think about the big picture and how everything's connected. And in our community, residents of Southeast and Southwest Fresno are always asking for more market rate housing. They say, we have affordable housing. We want a mix that enables us to have a higher quality of life. So they're always at the council asking, when can we get this? Under this VMT plan, it's going to be practically impossible because, you're looking at $10,000 being added to the price of a house. You think about that over 30 years, how it affects the mortgage rate. more importantly, for multifamily, in other words, apartment complexes, the price is going to be $3,000 a door. It's staggering. So that's just VMT. And I know Council Member Miguel Arias, he's going to say some things about, we're trying to get more investment on the south side. You're going to adopt this, and you're going to say, because my people have to drive further for services, that's going to make the score higher. We want the services right here so we can drive less, and yet you're going to make it harder for us to have more services. It's a good argument. Now, this AB 130, hardly anybody knew about it because it was one of those secret things tucked into the budget bill at the last minute. We see those things happen in California all the time. And in the San Diego area, they're talking about AB 130 adding $300,000 to the price of each new market rate home. Before AB 130 in San Diego, they estimated they had the capacity for about 58,000 new homes or units in their sphere of influence. It's less than 3,000 now because it's just not practical. And Jennifer Hernandez, she was educated at Berkeley. She describes herself as a liberal. And I think she's very much an honest liberal because she really digs into the data on these things. And she's really an expert on the Inland Empire in Southern California. And she talks about how you have these minority communities, and these people are driving a long distance to LA to work, and their VMT scores are through the roof. And how's that going to help anybody? So to me, again, politicians operating in silos saying this will fix this one problem doesn't work. You got to see how it's all interconnected. You got to bring a lot of people to the table. And you know what? You need to allow flexibility to fit this situation. And then finally, what's interesting about AB 130 is it says that, well, it doesn't give any credit for bike lanes because it says people don't commute via bike lanes. They use bike lanes for recreation. It also says we're not going to give any credit to a bus route that doesn't have proven ridership, high ridership. So we know in Fresno, out of all the many routes, probably 80% of the ridership comes on 4 or 5 routes. Those are the routes that take students to Fresno City College, to Fresno State, to Clovis Community College, to the new beautiful campus in Southwest Fresno. Those routes, they're popular and they work, but the other routes, no developer is going to get credit for adding a bus stop by their project. Just doesn't work. And so to me, she is really, exposing a lot about what's wrong with this kind of legislation.
That's a great explanation, Bill, on VMT, vehicle miles traveled. And if I'm a consumer, I'm not going to buy a home. I don't have a need to buy another home, but I like to see a new, call a shopping center, or at least a new restaurant open up. The cost of opening up new restaurants and new businesses is going to go up almost entirely, unless that restaurant is going into an existing neighborhood that with an existing building that doesn't need to be demolished and rebuilt, or all the services are already existing in that area. But if you live in a new housing development and you want new services, it's going to start costing those folks a lot more money to develop that property.
And Darius, there's one other thing on this issue which we didn't talk about, which is, residents of South Fresno, they say we need more grocery stores. We have certain zip codes that are identified as food deserts. And we're talking about under VMT that you would add $1 million to the cost of constructing a new grocery store. And, oftentimes for these retailers, they take a hard look at the zip code data. How much do people make? How far do they travel to go get their groceries? And oftentimes, well, they'll believe in the community. They say, it's really hard to justify it now, but we believe in the future of it. Can you imagine on a close call, now you have $1 million extra, you have to come up with the money to build a new grocery store? It's not going to happen in South Fresno. So again, people that are well-intentioned, they really need to dig deep into these things and come up with a way to make it work for everybody, but especially for the people that want investment and want new services, and for heaven's sakes, would like a nice grocery store somewhere close to their neighborhood.
This bill will kill the future of California. You can't live here. You can't afford to buy a home. You won't be able to go to new grocery stores. How to get more people to move out of our state. First, it's going to be the middle class because they won't be able to afford it. Then the upper class, eventually the rich. So this could be a state where only the very poor live. And of course, a legislator and all their lobbyists.
So another important point that Jennifer Hernandez brought up is past studies that show people that are receiving help, whether it's job training or they receive housing vouchers, they move on up. They earn more money as soon as they have access to a car, because the car helps them get to work on time. It eases a lot of things in their lives, even if it's an old beater. I mean, that's just a fact of life. And so, as she says, all the studies show that as people gain more income, they gain more skills, they get better jobs. If they've been riding mass transit before, they leave. Those that receive job training and other things like housing vouchers, if they don't get access to a car, they tend to stay in the same economic status that they were before, and they have a lot of trouble. It's the kind of life where every day is a challenge. So the state of California wants to put people out of cars, even though cars are cleaner than ever. Technology's been unleashed. We have tremendous competition in the electric vehicle market. We know, the next breakthrough is right around the corner. And even though the governor is saying you can't sell a new gas car after 2035 in California, and yet we're doing these crazy interim steps. And I don't know why they're doing it. Who are they pleasing? Well, certain environmental groups, certain lobbyists, certain groups that just believe that they have the answer when they haven't studied it at all. They're very dangerous.
And they want to see less people in California.
Yeah, so they can enjoy it themselves.
There we go. Last item is another state issue, but it impacts education. Bill actually walked into my office and said, "You won't believe what just happened." Bill, tell the audience what just happened.
So last Thursday, and then over Friday, as the state was releasing the test scores, the most recent test scores for K through 12 students in California, they also announced that if you were at level 2, which means not meeting standards, but getting close, that's now called meeting expectations. So every school district in the state can tell parents, wow, look, 60–70% of our students are meeting expectations. Who's in there? Well, it's the small group of students who are exceeding expectations. It's a bigger group that is meeting standards, exceeding standards, meeting standards. And now it includes an even larger group that isn't meeting standards, but apparently they're trying. I have a theory on this. Well, one, I think it's a psychological boost to a lot of school districts. They've been under a lot of scrutiny during COVID, post-COVID because test scores just plummeted, attendance plummeted. And, a lot of school boards, they kind of skated along for a long time. And now they're under the spotlight. It wears on them. That doesn't stop us from GV Wire from examining what they're doing. But I recognize they can feel beat up. So I think the governor's trying to give a psychological boost. More than that, I think he wants to be able to say on the 2028 presidential campaign trail, when people say, oh, California has bad schools, he can say, no, we don't. Look at our improvement. Look, 65, 70% are meeting expectations. That's better than any other state. It's also a term probably that only California is using.
Thank you for that explanation, Bill. And on that point, that's a wrap for us tonight. Anything else, Bill, you want to add?
No, I think we covered it from A to Z pretty much.
We did.
A
Awesome.
lot of state news, and we'll have stories on GV Wire about more of these bills that Governor Newsom signed and those that he vetoed, because no state legislature in America cranks out potential new laws like the state of California.
Exactly. Myrna Navarro Garcia says, are you telling me that standards have been lowered? I guess there's a new standard called meeting expectations. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, so standards haven't been lowered, but the way the students are performing, that description has been greatly altered.
Got it. And on that note from Bill McEwen, that's a wrap. Thanks everybody for watching. We covered a boatload of stuff tonight. Hope to see all of you next week, next Tuesday night. Enjoy this fantastic weather that's right in front of us. Good night and take care.